Today we're going to talk about how grounding really supports our body on a big scale, on the level of all of our organ systems interacting and signaling with each other, on the level of hormones, and on the level of our entire body's inflammation, and how that all of our systems interrelate to each other and message each other through this inflammatory cascade. And so when you decrease inflammation in one system, you're helping many systems throughout your entire body. So the classic example in my mind is how our gut interplays with our hormones. We're starting to understand this in conventional medicine, but our approach is very limited still in conventional medicine. In conventional medicine, we're starting to realize how gut inflammation and how what we eat affects a lot of different inflammatory processes in our body. So we know now that eating inflammatory foods constantly and having leaky gut and having gluten intolerance and that kind of thing, putting us in that reactive state of eating things that irritate our body chronically, then has ramifications for not just our gut being inflamed and not just having localized, irritable bowel or that kind of thing. It actually increases our incidence of having thyroid disease. And that is because our bodies are already on high alert, already in sort of a defensive inflammatory mode because of this leaky gut that we've got going on. And it causes our body to sort of be in a hypervigilant state. We're kind of reacting to things that we normally shouldn't react to. And that's why all kinds of allergic like food allergies and even environmental allergies, all kinds of allergic responses are going on the rise, and autoimmune disorders are as well. Our bodies are so inflammatory and so built up with this inflammatory damage that anything, even things that should be safe for us, like a piece of pollen or a piece of bread, they should be safe. Those should not be life-threatening conditions, but to our body, where the damage is already done and we're already so inflamed by our diet and by our lifestyle and by being disconnected to the earth and not having the opportunity to relax and discharge that. The analogy is a cup. If we have water coming in and then we drink it and have water coming in and we drink it, the cup never gets so high that it tips and spills over. But if we have a cup that is constantly having fluids coming in, water coming in, and we never ever empty it, then at some point it spills over. And that's sort of what the autoimmune issue is with our body. If we are getting insults because we're eating sugar and then we're around EMFs and it's stressful, and then our adrenals are going a little bit wonky and we've got cortisol that's high, and then we have sort of our body is hyperreacting, so we have some autoimmune issues going on, then it just takes one eating something that's irritating to our gut lining or one environmental exposure, just one extra drop to make the whole cup tip over. And so when the whole cup spills over, then our entire body manifests a disease that could have been prevented had our body constantly been discharging this inflammation and keeping the cup half empty, instead of there just becoming, like I talked about yesterday, this dead end container and constantly accruing inflammation until one little thing is enough that our entire body suffers as a result. If we can be the vessel, the clear channel where there is different inflammatory things coming in that would irritate our body, but our body is also getting that grounded support and is constantly in neutralization mode, then there isn't any one trigger that puts us over the edge. But unfortunately, since we've got that disconnect and we're not touching the earth and we're not getting that anti-inflammatory support, we now have become this container. So all day long, we're just adding to our cup. And it's just going to be a matter of time before that one thing makes the entire picture spill over and we've got an autoimmune disorder, or we've got food intolerances that are to the point where we are having an anaphylactic response or a complete intolerance to certain foods, or we're in adrenal fatigue that is just making us bottom out. If we can get back into that place where nothing is enough to make the cup spill over because we're constantly emptying it, we're going to be in a much better balance, and all of our hormones as a result respond. It's natural for us to be resilient. It's natural for us to interact with our environment, to eat certain foods, to have a certain amount of wear and tear on our body, and for us to be resilient from it. That's the human condition. We're adaptable and we have a constant flow of energy, and no cellular system in your body really stays the same. There's a constant renewal process of all of your cells and all of your organ systems, and there's a constant ever available process of refreshment to your body and to let go of the old and welcome in the new, and a constant system of repair. And unfortunately, we've lost that resilience because we've lost that connection to the earth, and because we are now accruing inflammation, we're not resilient anymore. So let's get our resiliency back. That is what this course is about. This course is about getting you back into that state of constant repair and renewal. We've talked about it from the beginning, how grounding supports your body, even just muscular damage, just from your exertion through the day, all the way up to sleeping at night in a more deep and restorative way. And now we're looking at the bigger picture of how connecting to the earth really impacts the homeostasis of all your different organ systems and through the chemical signaling between the organ systems, which is your hormones. And like I said at the beginning of this video, one issue in one hormonal cascade affects all. Your gut is connected to your thyroid, which is connected to your adrenal hormones, which is connected to your sex hormones, which is connected to your day-night rhythm. I mean, everything is interrelated between cortisol and thyroid and adrenal function and your estrogens and progesterones and your insulin sensitivity. So let's talk about the medical literature and how it's been shown that grounding has a direct impact on your hormonal cascades and so therefore on your health. So we touched a little bit on cortisol earlier on in the course. So let's review that. That's going to be our baseline study. They took 12 different patients and they had them grounded for 8 weeks, and they followed their cortisol levels through a salivary cortisol test, which is a 24-hour test that assesses the entire pattern of your cortisol rhythm. And so they did that at baseline, and then when they assessed them at 8 weeks, they found that just sleeping grounded, these patients slept grounded at night, and just sleeping grounded for those 2 months was enough to normalize everybody's cortisol level. I'm going to link you to that study below so that you can see that for yourself if you want to. Any big life transition or any trauma, whether it's just acute or it's just a buildup of chronic stress, can impact your adrenals' ability to produce cortisol in a normal way. And that's part of the body's response, is that it revs up the amount of cortisol to get you through trauma or a life situation, or in our modern society, just chronic stress. It's trying to get you through. And as a result, after a while, you feel like you're on fumes. And so adrenal fatigue is rampant. And after a while, we no longer can produce high levels of cortisol and we start to really burn out. And it isn't until we're burnt out that we really feel the depleted effects of having adrenal fatigue. And it's like for a while it's okay because you can rise to the challenge of it, but then after a while you no longer can even do that, and it's a complete bottoming out. So I'm actually going to include for you below an adrenal assessment quiz that you can print out and take, and you can assess your own adrenals. Could you be in adrenal fatigue? If so, you're going to for sure want to be grounded. That's part of the treatment for it. And I'm going to give you a link too, if you want to work privately with me and actually have your cortisol salivary tests tested, just like in this study that we're talking about. You can actually have your own 24-hour cortisol monitored, and I can tell you what your rhythm is showing and if you are in adrenal fatigue clinically, because adrenal fatigue is completely reversible. They have shown, there are studies about adrenal fatigue even in infants, which is sad, but in infants that are stressed out can go into adrenal fatigue, but then when they get appropriate nurturing and appropriate parental response and appropriate support, they can have a complete reversal. And the same is true for you. You can be in adrenal fatigue from childhood or your entire life, and when you actually address it, you can feel better than you've ever felt before. So supporting the adrenals and normalizing that cortisol is really, really important, and it's one thing that grounding can do quite quickly. And just a matter of weeks, you can feel better than you've ever felt before. And part of that is because of improved sleep, part of that is because of improved metabolic function, and part of that is absolutely because of that support to the adrenals. In fact, I'm convinced as a physician, working with patients for a decade and a half now, that you cannot actually have full repair and full support without grounding if it's an inflammatory condition. I don't think you can fully support the adrenals or the thyroid or insulin resistance, diabetes. I don't think you can fully support these inflammatory conditions without grounding. As I talked about at the beginning of this video, your thyroid is also interrelated into this whole cascade. In your gut, your adrenals, your thyroid, your sex hormones, they're all really interrelated to put together an entire picture of how good do you feel each day. So thyroid is huge, and thyroid disorders are very, 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 very common. And there's a good chance a lot of you in this class are suffering from a thyroid condition. There was a study where 12 patients were followed and grounded just one night, and they didn't even have clinical thyroid disease. They were just normal, undiagnosed, no thyroid malfunction whatsoever, and they followed their serum TSH levels and free T3 levels, and with just one night of grounding, both were decreased. So in just one night, they got a thyroid boost. And so over time, this has been clinically played out, where I've seen patient after patient after patient actually be able to come down on their thyroid replacement hormone, and or not, be prevented from having to go on it in the first place, because now their thyroid is not being inflamed and attacked by their own body. So they are not hypothyroid, and it actually resolves. In conventional medicine, so far, what we're understanding is that eating inflammatory foods that are inflammatory to our body and having leaky gut actually triggers and increases the incidence and severity of hypothyroid. And so in conventional medicine, we're starting to treat it by food restriction. So don't eat dairy, don't eat gluten, and do food allergy testing to see what is inflammatory to your body and stop those foods, and do some gut healing. And as a byproduct of that, many times hypothyroid can be truncated and avoided and resolved before it's necessary to even go on medication. And that's awesome. And I definitely advise that and guide patients through that. But on top of it, like I said earlier, I don't think you can have full resolution without that element of grounding, really neutralizing the inflammation, not just through the foods you eat, but also internally through that direct grounding connection. So grounding, in this study I just told you about, has been shown instantly within one night to boost thyroid function. So now we're not talking about, having to treat it completely through food restriction, but you can still do that and decrease inflammation in your gut, but then you can have instant boosting results directly through grounding. And I think the direct connection is what's missing in a lot of the conventional treatments we have. And so make sure, if you are taking any kind of prescription thyroid replacement, that you work in tandem with your in-person physician to monitor your body's response while you're grounding, because most likely you will be coming down on that and needing to adjust that as your body's thyroid function regains its own strength. Another situation where the body has such an immediate response to being grounded, a healthy rebounding, recovering our resiliency, is through insulin resistance. One example is a report of a patient who had type 2 diabetes, was on very, very poor control, even though they were on prescription medications, and they grounded for only 3 days and had an immediate, statistically significant decrease in their fasting blood glucose levels. So in just 3 days, after having been uncontrollable on prescription strength diabetic medication, they were able to affect change in their fasting blood glucose levels. If you're on thyroid medication, if you're on blood sugar medication, if you're on blood pressure medication, these are all things that you may, and sleep medication, because these are all things that you're getting support naturally through, and so you may need to actually be adjusted to come down in dose in any of those conditions. So make sure that you're working in conjunction with your in-person physician if you are on these kind of medications, because you don't want to be overdosed. You may not need them in as strong amounts as you're taking them currently. It's a well-known anecdotal side effect of all of these grounding studies that we've been talking about all week long. The past 20 years of all these grounding studies going on for months and months and months is an increased pregnancy rate and healthier and easier pregnancies and delivery. So as a side effect, just so you know, the whole hormonal cascade that it has to do with your reproduction and your sex hormones is affected. And I hope that the next phase is that direct fertility studies, instead of it being a side effect that fertility is boosted and increased, I hope that they will actually do fertility studies, because that would be an amazing, wonderful thing to offer patients who are trying to conceive and who are having trouble with conceiving, which is a really something that I'm asked commonly. For all human beings, grounding is a natural boost to your health, but I especially think it's important for women. Not only are you going to get that fertility boost, not only is it helpful with PMS and with natural life changes and transitions and with stabilizing your hormones, not only is it going to help you sleep better, and like we talked about at the beginning, not only is it going to help your bones stay stronger and help you thwart osteopenia and osteoporosis in the long term, but as the earth is the creative expression of life, so are women the creative expression of human life. So the earth gives rise to life as we know it and all the nurturing you need to survive on this planet, like air and like water and like food. Just as earth is the creative expression of life, women are the creative expression of human life, in that we're the vessel then to create children and to offer nurturing and nutrition to our offspring. So for women, there's an added bonus and an added element of needing that life flow, that physical, tangible support from the earth to optimize the well-being of our entire body, so that we can then offer life and optimize the well-being of our offspring. So I actually discovered grounding after becoming a mom, and as a direct result of becoming a mom and having a baby who had colic. And colic is an inflammatory condition of the gut lining, and there's a pain response because there's this inflammation in the gut. And nothing that I did conventionally helped. The only thing that helped was for me to be outside barefoot, touching the earth, sitting on the earth, or walking. I generally walked, holding my daughter on my skin, on my chest, skin to skin, and me being grounded, and therefore my child being grounded in my arms. It was the only thing that could stop her from crying, and it was to the point of being comical. If I would step outside, she would instantly be able to fall asleep because she had been, miserable for hours and hours and hours and hours without rest. And when, even if she fell into a deep slumber in my arms because she was so exhausted and finally feeling that, that relief, if I stepped inside 1 foot inside the doorway, just took both my feet, went inside, she would not know she's asleep, and instantly woke up, that flushing, that pain response, and alert, awake, and crying again and in pain. And then going immediately back out. It was like, it was comical. It was stepping in, woke up crying, stepping back outside, instant relief, stepping in, went back to crying. Nothing, that, I didn't even know about grounding when I did that. I did not know the medical research. I was a physician at the time, but I was not aware of this practice at all. And that is what taught me about this practice. And that is how I looked further at it. And that's how I discovered there is a real thing. There is a real thing, and it's being medically studied. And that's how I started diving into the literature, is because I, in a roundabout way, as a mom, discovered this healing modality for my child. So, but it's not just women that can really benefit from the practice of grounding, because we're all creative human beings. Men and women and children, we're all creative. We all need to have expression, and we need to have that ability to put something into the world that would not be there otherwise if it weren't for us. That it's impossible for someone else to be us and offer what we offer, and think the thoughts we think, and feel the feelings we feel, and interact and connect how we do that. And every single person is individual. Every single person is unique. There's never going to be anyone like you. There's never ever going to be. There never has been, and there never will be. There's only you to be you. And so all of us need that creative support from Mother Earth. We all need to feel not only that physiologic response, but that energetic response of the creative life flow that the Earth offers, the whole planet offers, to every living thing on the planet, so that energy and that inspiration and that life force can run directly through our bodies when we touch it. So your assignment is this. First, I want to start figuring out, what is your cortisol profile? What is your adrenal status? And then I want to start using grounding to impact and support you there. So print out that adrenal assessment questionnaire I have for you below, and let's figure out where you are with that, and let me know if I can support you further, either personally through laboratory work, or together in a 5-day online healing class just like this one, running next month. Would love to see you there. And then on top of addressing your cortisol and your adrenal profile, let's just start supporting you with that, because even if you were doing great, as you know, grounding impacts your body from head to toe in a million ways. So let's really reinforce a healthy day-night rhythm by combining grounding with morning light. If you read my blog, you know I've recently written an article about how important morning light is for the health of your body and for your mental well-being. It actually treats depression just as good, if not better, than any prescription antidepressant, and it actually augments and boosts the effect of prescription antidepressants. So even if you were on a prescription, adding morning sunlight in statistically significantly helps boost mood and energy. And if we can combine that with grounding, then we know that we're really providing, on a deeper cortisol level, this support to our mood and to our daily rhythm. So I really want to challenge you, not just today, but for the whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday too, to really combine grounding your body with morning light. And it's okay if it's rainy, and it's okay if it's cloudy, because that light, even when environmentally it's cloudy and rainy and dark, it's still daytime and your pineal gland can pick up on that, even if it's very diffuse light. It's just a little bit of light is enough. So whatever it is like, what's more important is the timing of it. It's more important for you to get a little bit of morning light, hopefully around 8 or 9 a.m. But anytime that's morning for you, so if you wake up at 6 or if you wake up at 10, whatever's morning for you, you're telling your body that by then exposing your body to that light at that time. So you know that you have control over your day-night rhythm by exposing your body to light first thing in the morning. So, and even if it's just for 1 minute, I want you to do it. No excuse. If you can't do 20 minutes, okay, do 1 minute. Even if all you do is wake up, walk outside, stand in your doorway, hopefully with a blade of grass touching your toe or your hand touching a tree or a bush or on the concrete of your doorstep, and even if you took 2 deep breaths and went back inside and got dressed and then went to work and had your day started, do that. If it's 1 deep breath outside with the light going on it and grounding, do that. Hopefully you can do that for 10 minutes. And another way to do that is indoors if you have an earthing or a grounding product like the wristband in this class. You can find a window that gets morning light, and this is what I do. I take my cup of coffee and I just drink it, and that's the amount of time I have to give my body that morning light. So if it's 2 minutes or if it's 5 minutes, whenever I'm just sitting there drinking my coffee, I actually sit on the floor in a sunbeam in my kitchen. And I drink it, and that's my morning light. And so if you can combine that with grounding, with a wrist strap or a mat or a hot water bottle or a pillow or whatever, however you ground indoors, you can do that and just be in a window. But I want you to do that really, on a religious basis. I want you to gift that to yourself now, today, tomorrow, and the next day. Every morning light and grounding your body, preferably outside and preferably for a longer period of time, but nothing is too short. And whether it has to be indoors or outdoors, do that. And then your last assignment is to email me any extra questions you have, because I don't want it just to be ending today. This is our last video, but it's not the last time we're going to connect. I want you to email me all weekend long as you do this practice of setting your rhythm with grounding and morning light every single morning. I want you to let me know what changes you feel. I want the feedback and I want the interaction. So email me. And get your questions in by Sunday morning, if you can, and I'm going to pile them all together and have them all printed out, and I'm going to talk to you about them live on our phone call. If you can call in on Monday when I address it, I'll go over every single question that any of you have ever asked me this all week long and even all weekend long. And then if you can't call in and listen live, that's okay, because I'm going to immediately email out the link so you can listen whenever it's convenient for you, and you can re-listen in the future if you forget something or you want to review something. Hold on to that recording and it will always be active and available for you indefinitely. Okay, so I hope you have a great weekend. I want you to incorporate morning light so that we can really support your hormones no matter where you are. I want you to assess your adrenal glands, but even if you don't assess them, I really want you to ground and get that morning light. That's a really healthy thing for your body inside and out. It's healthy for your mind, and it's going to help your energy levels. And I want you to experiment it with all weekend long. And any other questions that have come up from the whole week or any other questions you have that I didn't go over in the content of the course, I want you to email them to me, and I will look forward to talking to you on Monday. I'll send you out that recording, but hopefully you can listen in live and we can really connect in real time. And I'll send you a reminder, don't worry, with a link and with phone call details on Monday. So have a great weekend grounding, and I'll talk to you then.